Welcome back to HustleHub Live. We have gone under a rebrand. We're no longer Meet the Mentor. We are HustleHub. We're here to help you get into business and your side hustle, as well as navigate the challenges from actually starting a business. So I've got the very guest pleasure of having Matt Hall, who is a life coach. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hiya. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Hall. I am, amongst many things, the founder of Success School, which is the most incredible, amazing membership/community.
Second best podcast as well.
Definitely. No, it's a good one. It's a good one. Not as good as this.
Yeah,
This is going places. But yeah, Success School, that's my baby.
Awesome. So obviously you've gone into life coaching, but there's been a very long story of Matt before he was a life coach. You are a world record holder. This is the first world record holder, and it might actually only be the only ever record holder we have on the podcast.
It was. You got to believe. You got to believe.
You're a TV personality. You're a Take That entertainer. So talk to me. What was the journey that you had to go through before you felt that you could start becoming a life coach?
I think for me it was, I think with anybody that gets into this kind of industry, usually there's something within them that's, I want to do better, I want to be better. And there's always a story there. It's never, I don't think you generally find people, and maybe this is true for therapists and you know, counselors and things like that. Usually the interest comes not just solely, or from my experience, not just solely from, I'm interested in psychology. There's usually a catalyst. For me, I was just always ambitious, and it didn't really serve me that well. I found myself constantly getting burnt out, constantly starting new projects and then not really having huge success with it. And it kind of came to a head when I was about 27, when I was, I'd put on a little bit of weight. I was running a business 7 days a week. And I think my girlfriend and I at the time, we'd been together nearly 7 years, and we split up, and it was a really horrible, messy breakup. And then I just kind of thought, shit, like, what was the point in all this striving and ambition? Because where has it led me? And in my mind, I was like, God, I'm 30 in a few years. Like, life is ending.
Midlife crisis, come in.
All that, yeah, in my 20s. There you go. But so, yeah, for me, it was that was the thing. I recognized something has to change. I need to learn more about what ultimately is driving that ambition. You know, what's healthy, what isn't, and figure out how to improve myself. When I did that, and when I learned about, personal development and mindset work and all this stuff, it's literally like you want to tell the world. You're like, oh my God, guys, there's another way. Like, School has lied to us all. Like, you don't just have to, base success on money and what job title you have and what car you drive and all that bullshit. So then the natural thing is I wanted to share that.
Amazing. And that's obviously, that led you on to starting a podcast as well, to tell your story.
Yeah.
But I guess, obviously, a lot of people can call themselves a life coach. I mean...
A lot of people do.
Exactly.
They shouldn't.
Exactly. And obviously, I saw you were at Tony Robbins' event recently. So obviously, you're very involved in that industry. What do you think you have learned during your experiences before you became a life coach that actually qualified you to start advising people on their mindset? And actually, because obviously in business there are so many challenges, and I can't imagine how difficult it would have been coming out of a 7-year breakup. Like, me and my partner have been together almost 7 years, and like if I was to think we were to end this year or next year, like,
it's a long time.
I mean, it takes you completely out of what you're focusing on, right? So I think a lot of people would like to hear about overcoming some of those challenges and how you bounce back as well. Because if we're trying to build a business, we don't want it to be derailed by events that we can't sometimes control.
Yeah, I think for me, like, one of the biggest things I learned is the mistake we make is thinking we can do everything on our own. And there's only so much we can do. It's an old-fashioned saying that there's strength in numbers, right? So I think for me, it was recognizing you need to get help, and you need to learn from people that have done what you've already, or what you're wanting to do, what you're trying to achieve. Kind of going back to your question of what qualifies me, I think a lot of coaches will say the same. It's when you've overcome things like, the first few years of starting my company. So I was 19 when I set up my first business.
Wow.
And that company is an agency and management for tribute bands and function bands and live entertainment. And I set up that business just because, as we were saying there, I was just really ambitious, just took opportunities and was just like, let's just go. And then obviously you learn that business can be quite tough, and I hired the wrong people. Then I had to go through the really difficult process of letting them go, and made some money, lost a lot of money. But I would say probably like 4 years of that, I was working every single day, long hours. And I just got completely burnt out, wasted a lot of money. Any money that I ever earned was reinvested into the business, which you understand that.
Yeah,
we were just
I do, yeah.
about the early days of a business. And when I got to the point where I was, maybe 7-8 years in, I was like, gosh, there's so much I now know that I needed to know back then. And if I had have known it back then, I could have saved myself a lot of pain, a lot of money that was lost. And just like I say, the personal development stuff, learning how to observe your emotions and not be a slave to your emotions, not be led by emotions. I say all the time, when emotion is high, logic is low. So just understanding that and learning things like the fact that emotions only last 90 seconds. Like for them, like biologically, an emotion lasts 90 seconds. The thing that allows us to stay feeling down or frustrated or angry is what we focus on, because then that keeps re-triggering the emotion. So all this stuff that I'd learned was really helping me. And I suddenly, I went from being a stress head that was overworked, that was struggling financially, to being able to prioritize and, become a lot happier and a lot clearer about who I am and what I want out of life. So for me, then it was about, I needed this and I want to be able to help other people, and I've got a passion for it. And I think I'm quite good at being able to convey and communicate in a way that people get and people understand.
Yeah. So I think passion is, and we see it a lot on the podcast, it's at the crux of any helping. It's, you're passionate about helping someone. I think that's one of the most important aspects or attributes, I should say, of any good person, for one. Because you go back to before all of this technology. I mean, people would live in small communities and help each other, right? I mean, not to be communistic or anything like that, but I mean, the art of helping somebody is very much part of who humans are across the world, as much as you have some bad people. But I mean, that's at the crux of it. And I think it's a noble venture that people go on to, as much as it's a business, but to actually give up their time to support people and actually sort of go on to start their dreams, right?
It's the most rewarding feeling in the world from a completely selfish point of view,
Seeing someone succeed from your advice, right?
Yeah, it's honestly, there's so many examples I can think of now of these people, and probably one of the best, most recent examples was I've just held our first proper event, as you know, in Manchester a few weeks ago, and it was really overwhelming at the interval when I went out and met everybody. And it was just so many people that I've known for years and coached online for years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think obviously a lot of people sometimes get selfishly driven, obviously, and don't give back. And I think I saw obviously clips of the room, and the energy looked,
it was insane,
electrifying.
It was so good,
I'm definitely coming to the next one, unreal. So it brings me to the next point around confidence. I think confidence is, and confidence, risk taking, it goes hand in hand. I think when starting a business, that you've got to take that leap of faith, because you never know. You could have the best business plan, you could have this whole idea that this business is going to succeed, but until you start, it's just an idea. And most of the time, you're not going to get straight off to unbelievable success. When we started Mentor Me, it was like, okay, this is going to absolutely change the game for people who want to start a business. But You got to get out there.
Yeah.
And until you're out there and you've actually committed time and effort to it, you know, people aren't going to trust you. You're not going to have the authority in space. So confidence is key. So tell me, what was your journey to become, so you were significantly stressed, which obviously hurts your confidence significantly, I'd imagine. But you've come from a stage where you're on stage, hopefully confident. But what's the journey to make sure that you're confident enough to, I guess, give it a go and fully go into and absolve yourself into where you are now?
I think the first thing I learned being in the performing industry from a young age is some of the least confident people are performers. And the reason being, you know, you got to look at why are they performing. Part of it might be, they love creativity, they, you know,
Tension, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's ultimately, they're trying to feel something on some level, which is they want that external validation. You know, when you look at an actor, which is what I was when I was a kid growing up, an actor, when their agent says you've got an audition, they feel validated. When they get a recall at the audition, they feel validated. When they get the job, they feel validated. When the job airs on TV or they do the opening night on stage and the audience say it was amazing, they feel validated. When the director says that was a great performance, everything's about external validation. The thing that I've learned about confidence is true, authentic confidence comes from internal validation. And you internally validate really by keeping your word to yourself. You know, the things that when no one else knows, when no one else is looking, do you let yourself off the hook? So if you go to the gym, or even just before you get to the gym, if you say you're gonna go to the gym, do you do it?
Yeah.
You know, or do you go, actually, I can give myself a rest, and then cue excuses why it's okay to rest? You know, the more times you let yourself off the hook, the more you're going to need external validation because you didn't validate yourself. And that's something I started to learn that I was doing, you know, as a performer, and why I'd got into performing. It was this need to be loved, to be liked, to be admired, and it was all the wrong reasons. And so many of us, especially in this modern age of social media, where we literally get, you know,
Likes,
when people click
validation.
that like, yeah. And so when I started recognizing this, you know, within myself, and I started recognizing this is a real problem for a lot of people, that's when I got to work on, okay, confidence comes from doing the things when no one else is watching that you might not want to do, but in doing it, you're going to be proud for doing it. It's a phrase that I hear a lot, which I think is a great phrase. When you pick the hard things, you have an easier life. Easy things equals a harder life.
Yeah.
In other words, if you constantly say, oh, you know, it's easy to eat the chocolate. It's hard to be disciplined and say, no, I'm going to have the lettuce and the broccoli. You know, it's easy to snooze your alarm and stay in bed. It's harder to go to the gym. The more that we kind of can tot up these votes for picking the harder, more positive, productive route, the more that the compound effect's going to come in. And that's what gives you authentic confidence, is not thinking about it or looking in a mirror saying affirmations, I'm good enough, because you're lying to yourself. You don't believe you're good enough.
Yeah.
The way that we get the belief that we're good enough and therefore confidence is evidence. So anybody listening right now, that's something to reflect on. Do you let yourself off the hook? Are you lying to yourself? You know, are you constantly coming up with excuses as to why you didn't do it, when actually there's that phrase, you'll either find an excuse or find a way. You could have found a way. So that's for me the key to confidence. And part of that is doing stuff you're shit at. Part of that is doing stuff you are not, quote unquote, yet qualified to do, because you don't have the evidence that you've done it. You know, the first time you coach somebody, you might have studied, you might have got qualifications, you might have life experience, you might have read books, listened to podcasts, watched videos, done multiple courses, all of which I've done. Still your first client. And that's the same for doing your first YouTube video or your first podcast or whatever. Somewhere. Yeah, right. So I think the really important message there is, I said this last night on a coaching call, to get good, you have to be shit. Like, nobody starts gifted. Right, yeah. So you have to have the courage. And courage is different to confidence, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing it despite fear, right? Because if you don't feel scared, that would suggest you're confident, which is different to courage. So if you don't feel scared, you're confident in your ability. If you feel scared, but you do it anyway, that's what courage is. So my advice to anybody that's like struggling with confidence is, when was the last time you were really courageous? When was the last time you did something you were shit scared to do, took a risk, did something new out of your comfort zone? Do that repeatedly, And eventually you might be all right. And when you start being all right, you start to believe in yourself. And then over time, you start to become confident.
It's a compound effect, isn't it? And I mean, I can talk to that in my own experience. Like, I felt starting a business was always going to be risky because part of it is social media, right? And I'm not a massive fan of being on camera and all this stuff.
Here we are.
Here we
doing
are.
it anyway.
I mean, because you haven't really got a choice. You either do or you don't, right? I mean, to quote Yoda, but like you literally, you're either doing it or you're not. Like if you have a dream, whether that's whatever that dream is, it can be goals in life, it can be starting your business, it can be relationships, like whatever your goal is. If you aren't just gonna go in with the mindset of I'm just gonna get it done, doesn't matter the challenges, we're gonna get through it. You're not gonna, if you go in,
there has to be an element of, and I mean this with respect, and I'm not saying all the time, but there has to be an element of fuck how you feel, right? There has to be an element of, rather than putting your emotions on a pedestal right now, which might be I'm not good enough, I'm scared, I'm frightened, whatever those emotions are, put the emphasis on the action. What do I need to do to get the result? Because guess what? When you get the result, your emotions change anyway. Then we can focus on the emotions, right? And I think too many people that don't do the things they're capable of and indeed want to do is because they put too much emphasis on how they're feeling and they're led by emotion. If you're consistently just led by how you feel, it's not always going to serve you, because we're human beings, our emotions will change, and sometimes we'll feel scared, frustrated, self-doubt. What happens if you're constantly listening to that and being led? You're going to hold yourself back.
No, definitely. And I think there's an element of sometimes needing to trust your gut, but I think anyone starting a business or whatever they're doing, you just got to risk it. I mean, what is the worst thing that can possibly happen? Maybe write it down on paper and say, well, but what's also the best thing that can happen?
And also, whatever that worst case scenario is, I would imagine in most scenarios, you're not going to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you would, I don't know. So what that means is there will be a solution. There's always a way to come back. And I've just always had that mindset. And I'm not actually sure that specific bit, I don't know where it comes from. I think probably part of it is I was very, very lucky to have two amazing, really supportive parents. And I think it probably came from that. When I look at it and I analyse it, that's played a part. But for me, as long as I can remember, I've always been happy to take risks, because I've always thought whatever the worst scenario is, and I do think about that, I think it's important. I always think, but there's always a solution, you know? And I think part of that as well is not needing everything now. If you're willing to play the long game, you know that you can build over time. And actually, the quickest way to success is failure. You know, the sooner you fail, the sooner you get feedback, you learn, and then that is the potential power to propel you forward, right?
Yeah, a feedback loop has to happen. Like because if you just go through and you're just, I mean, I don't know if there are people that can do it, but where you're just successful, and you never hit any challenge. When you do hit a challenge, you're just gonna fall apart. Like, I mean, completely. You've got to overcome hurdles in your life to get there. So I just want to come away, because I like the point around like delaying gratification, and it's something that a lot of us talk about, right? The problem with side hustles and business and life and relationships is everyone wants that quick win. Always. I don't know what's driven it, but it's going to be, in my mind, maybe an issue for people coming up now, that you're surrounded by all of this instant gratification, and how do you navigate that?
More than it's ever been, right? If you want porn, it's there in an instant. You can see whatever you want to see within seconds. If you want food, takeaway, you can get it delivered to your doorstep. If you want entertainment, whatever you want now in this world we're living in, if you want likes on social media, it is instant. So this is only becoming more and more of an issue for people, which is why I think these conversations and mentoring and coaching and so on is important. When it comes to anything in life, when it comes to any genuine success and substantial long-term success, I think the quote that I heard that is really, really great is the slow way is the fast way.
Yeah.
Because there is no fast way in reality. Anything that's a quick win isn't usually a sustainable long-term win, and therefore it's not actually a win, it's a false win. So if you can get your head around having patience, playing the long game, and recognizing the fastest way to success is the slow way, doing things correctly, learning through failures, not trying to cut corners.
You've got to build blocks.
Because if you try and take the fast route, or you're easily led by shiny penny syndrome of, oh, I was doing this, but it's not working, so I'll go there. You can't constantly changing and shifting.
You're not building anything.
You're not building anything substantial. And what you're going to often do is hit a real failure of, oh my God, I've tried all these things and none of it's working. When actually, if you'd have just done one thing for 3 years versus 25 things for 3 years, you'd have probably, that would have been the fast way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that I constantly tell myself with this business, right? I mean, the amount of money I've invested into the business at this point, it's like, maybe I could have got a quick win somewhere else. And maybe Definitely. A lot of people would give up, right? Because it's not easy doing something that hasn't been done before, especially if it's in your own life. If it's not an experience that you've done before, it's not easy. And it comes back to easy life means hard life or whatever it was, right? I mean,
yeah. If you're constantly gonna do the easy stuff, you're gonna have a harder life. So if you constantly go, no, it's easier to just not do this business or go for the quick win, there's gonna be a consequence somewhere.
Yeah. So what would you recommend, and what would you like your advice be like to the Gen Z coming up, and maybe not just Gen Z, but I'd say predominantly, the social media age, that I feel like social media has obviously driven this a bit further because it is instant with technology.
Definitely.
What would you recommend someone that needs to get out of that mindset?
I would say first things first, use the internet, don't let it use you. So if you're on social media, don't be using it for needing validation that's lacking within. Use it because it's a great tool to connect with people, to build, a brand, a personal brand, relationships, so on. And go into it intentional. It's so easy to get lost 3 hours later scrolling through cat videos on TikTok. I've been there TikTok as well. I'm not saying I'm perfect, right? So be intentional when you're on there. I schedule my days, and I would schedule social media time. And when that time's up, move on, get away from it. So I think specifically when it's about social media, that would be a little bit of advice I would give people about that. Beyond that, when it comes to just not needing internal validation and all this kind of thing, I think it comes down to having a bit more of a vision. Where do you want to go? And why do you want to get there? I think why is important as well, because sometimes...
Why is the most important?
It is. Yeah, I agree with that. Because often I want millions of pounds. Why?
Yeah.
And actually it probably comes back to, again, there's a piece missing inside that you want to validate. Oh, it's because I got bullied at school. It's because I thought the answer to my problems was millions of pounds. We all know, or we should know by now, it's on enough podcasts, that's actually not the answer. So go clearer on the why, get clearer on the vision. And also, if you don't have a vision right now, that's okay too, but that doesn't mean to not think about one. That's what people do. They go, oh, I don't have a vision. I don't know what I want to do in my life. Therefore, that's full stop, the end of conversation.
I still think, even at that point, if people don't know what they want to do with life, they know what type of person they want to be. They know where they want to be in their life, whether or not... And it can be as basic as, I just want to live in a house, a 3-bed house with my family and kids, and be able to buy food shopping, and that's completely fine. But how do you do that? That's where your vision comes into. How am I going to achieve whatever my goal is?
Yeah.
And I think goal setting comes into it. And actually, I done a reel on it a while ago that goal setting is one of the most important parts of any business, in my opinion. That apart from actually doing stuff, but you actually need to know what you're doing stuff for, right?
People get a little bit lost with just doing stuff for doing its sake. They're just doing reels every day because someone said it'll make you go viral. It'll make you go viral on TikTok. Yeah, but why? What's the reason? What are we going to do with that attention? Where do we take that attention? So you're absolutely right. I think goal setting is really important. I also think what we're speaking about here reminds me of something that I talk about in terms of happiness. When you're talking about why are we doing things? Why do we want success? What is that vision? Ultimately, on some level, it always comes down to we want to feel happy. We want to live happy, healthy, successful lives, whatever success means to that individual. And something I speak about with my content and my coaching is I believe there's 2 key ways we get happiness. And that is when we experience pleasure or fulfillment. They're the two of the biggest ways we can feel happy. Pleasure comes from usually the short-term things, like the chocolate, like the nights out, the parties, those kind of things. Binge watching Netflix and crap reality TV. That's pleasurable.
You've been on.
Maybe not. I cannot confirm or deny. But people get pleasure from that. It's escapism. They don't have to deal with life. They don't have to focus on life. They can just enjoy the pleasure, and that makes people happy. But then there's another side, and that's fulfillment. And I believe fulfillment comes when you're doing something truly meaningful, something that matters, something often that's beyond you. or it comes from things like learning a new skill set, pushing yourself to be better. And my advice to people is this. Unlike some coaches, I don't demonize pleasure. I like chocolate and I like nights out.
Don't we all?
Right. And that's the truth, actually. Yeah. So I think if you've got a mentor or a coach going like, you must, go hard or go home, no days off. I just think, fuck off.
It does my head in a bit. And
yeah,
I obviously I've been sort of documenting my life a little bit with like these day in the life videos, and I watch back and I'm just thinking, not every waking moment of your life should be grinding.
No.
Because why on earth are you grinding?
Yeah,
like,
what for?
I fully understand it. Like, and I spoke about it in a video, is that, look, I will have a day off because I've got a family. I want to spend time with my family. I'm only working. Obviously, I want to make a difference in the world, stopping people getting scammed. But I'm also doing that to give me time with my family in the future. But if I'm neglecting them now, they might not be there in the future.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, if you're always serving others and living for the purpose of giving to others, whatever, you've got to remember, we're here for a short space of time. Like, don't forget to enjoy some of it. So my advice with people, and I'd say this to anybody, is I'm not saying demonize pleasure. Pleasure's a great way of getting happiness on occasion. But the reality is this: look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the question, do I get 90% of my happiness from pleasure? And if that's the answer, that's where you're going to run into problems. Because if you're always getting pleasure from chocolate, from nights out, from alcohol, from drugs, whatever it may be that you do, then there's going to be a consequence. So for me, it's about getting the balance right. And for me, you need to look at what makes you feel you're getting fulfillment. What makes you feel like you're doing something meaningful, something that's developing you, makes you feel there's a sense of growth. That's a deeper level of happiness. I think it's genuinely a healthier version of happiness, but with the caveat that pleasure in moderation is cool too.
Yeah, I think moderation is the key there, isn't it? And the only thing that I come to think of as we're sort of going over all of this with the gratification, constant pleasure, that it's making people anxious because they're scared of not having that pleasure. See, scared and anxious slightly different, but they are. There is this whole thing now in the UK where a lot of people are growing up and becoming very anxious from ever doing anything. And it's, I mean, I don't know what your take is on it, but I mean, it's stopping people from moving forward in their lives.
And I think what we've got to understand is anxiety is a normal feeling. We don't need to demonize that as well. That's something, just because you're feeling anxious, the question you've got to ask is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to allow it to
take over your life?
Yeah, exactly that. Or can you, okay, I'm feeling this way. Number one, can I understand why? Where's it coming from? Like, actually question it. Actually, could some of it be useful? Am I anxious because there's something within me that's unsettled and I want to be better, I want to do better? And maybe that can be used as a driver and a motivator.
Get fulfillment.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I think the anxiety conversation's an interesting one, and obviously it's a complex one, and obviously on some level it's going to be different for individuals. There is people who genuinely have mental health challenges and things like that, and that's a slightly different conversation. But what I would suggest is most people who generally are feeling anxious is because they're putting their focus on the wrong things. You know, they're focusing on keeping up with everybody else. They're focusing on needing to be liked, loved, accepted by everybody else. They're focused on, I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to do it wrong, the worst case scenario. We need to refocus. Look, and I think that's the thing I'd say to someone. If you consistently feel anxious, what are you consistently thinking about? Because there will probably lie the answer.
Yeah, and it's a way of then tackling it. So I think pivoting away from some of the challenges that people are facing there. So if I want a life coach like yourself, how would you help me overcome these challenges?
With anxiety specifically?
With all of these problems that everyone's dealing, everything.
Yeah,
how can
we
you
all
help?
are. And by the way, even when you become a life coach, you don't stop dealing with the same challenges. You just have more understanding, awareness, maybe tools to manage it quicker.
Yeah.
Right? I would say that's all it is. And again, any coach that's like paints this picture of perfection with the beautiful mansion, nice cars, wife, 2 kids, great body, and they're just always positive. I always say to people, that's probably a red flag that they're
hiding something.
There's something, it's a facade, it's not real. But when I work with people, for me, it's always about, usually when I'm sat with a client, I hear what they're saying, but I'm looking at what's beneath what they're saying. There's usually a a catalyst, a foundational point in there that if we just make a change there, I'll give you an example. Somebody says, oh my God, me and my partner are falling out all the time. You know, we're never agreeing on anything. We're always stressed and ratty and da-da-da-da-da. And then I go, right, to the basics. Okay. How much sleep are you getting? How often are you working? How much exercise are you getting? How hydrated are you? What food are you eating? Tick, 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 tick. As I suspected, all that's gone out of the window. So often I'll go, right, let's just focus on that for now. And they're like, but I came for coaching on, I'm about to lose my missus. I'm like, yeah. Let's just make a shift in your routine. Let's make a shift in your habits. Let's put a bit more priority on saying no to things, creating more time, creating more space. And I think what I say all the time is look after the basics, and the basics will look after you. I'm going to be completely honest. A lot of the time when I'm coaching clients, there's no crazy magic formula. There's not like, oh my God, there's some wizardry going on here. Like 9 times out of 10, people are struggling because they're not getting the basics right. And part of my role is to shine a light on that and then support them in creating a bit of a strategy that works better and hold them accountable to that strategy. That's pretty much it. But again, easier said than done. It's one thing to know that, it's another thing to actually do it.
And
that's
action
where
it, which is obviously what we come to earlier about actually actioning it, being held accountable. And I think the basics, I like the point actually, because I think people probably, when you're too close to a problem, you can't see something that's looking right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like not getting enough sleep.
Massive. It's a wonder drug.
You're going to be ratty.
If you could sell someone what sleep gives you, you'd be billionaire.
Your whole body resets and all that stuff.
But we've all got access to that for free every day. Yeah. And yet, because of some of the hustle culture that we see and have seen online, although I do think overall that narrative's changing, which is good. It's all this sleep when you're dead, no days off bullshit. And we're neglecting the most important thing that will actually give us energy, clarity, make us feel sharper, make us feel more positive. Like everything feels harder when you're not slept. And you get this because you've just become a father recently.
I've been quite lucky actually. My partner and I have got a really good routine. Our son's pretty amazing, which is lucky for us. But
yeah, good.
It's also keeping up with the other stuff. Like I always say to my missus that if she's got a headache, have you had any water? No.
That's it. And then I think the other, and it sounds obvious when you say it, but everything is obvious.
Yeah.
Everything. Look at personal trainers. Like, why are they still in business?
Eat good,
we all know.
exercise.
We all know what to do. But it's still a multi-billion-pound industry because people need reminding, they need supporting, they need accountability, they need inspiration, they need motivation. I say it a lot of the talks that I do. You know, people come with their notepads wanting to learn loads of nuggets. I say, you don't need any more information. You need more inspiration. It's not enough to just know loads of shit. Oh, I've got more information. Yeah, but are you doing it?
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, why? Well, because you're not feeling inspired to do it. If the mindset's not right, if you're being led by emotion, if you're not sleeping right, if all these basic things are in place, you can know everything in the world and it won't mean shit. It's that phrase, to know and not to do is not to know. Knowledge is not really power. As Tony Robbins says, it's potential power. The thing that gives it power is you actioning it, and the thing that's going to make you action it is when you're feeling right. And when your mind's right.
Yeah.
And that's where sleep comes in, right?
And obviously inspiration, all of that stuff. And obviously, I imagine when I think about it, you and your business, that's why you've gone into doing seminars.
Yeah.
And getting
my favourite
people
thing to do ever, by the way.
Getting
I love
people
it.
into a room,
yeah,
energizing them so that they can come and walk away and feel inspired. And I imagine you feel that as well. You come out and go,
huge.
Let's go again.
Community, being in person, feeling the energy, looking in the whites of people's eyes. You know, when we've, again, doing so much on Zoom and there's a place for it and I'm grateful for it. You know, technology is great. But getting in a room with people is amazing. It's a different energy. I love it. But also, the thing I always finish all my talks with is the time we've spent together today has been the biggest waste of time. This whole thing's been a piece of shit. I'm the shittest coach you've ever met if you don't now do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I always say. You know,
that's really true as well.
Like, inspiration in short bursts is lovely, but what are you doing consistently to stay inspired and keep, you know, around the fire, as they say, you know, whether that be listening to podcasts, books, being in communities, having mentors, coaches. It's not enough to just go to one event a year. and have an hour of inspiration or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a lot of what we see and mentors and coaches will battle. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are terrible and should never touch being a mentor or a coach again because of the way they do it and they scam people. But also, it's also down to the individual. We want to set people up for success.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the biggest things. Like, I would rather turn somebody away than take their money, because it reflects poorly on everyone. If you take their money and just say, "Oh, fine, you'll pay me. I'll teach you what I teach you." But if you're not ready to receive that, what's the point?
100%.
We're wasting our time here.
Yeah.
And obviously, they then go away and saying, "Well, that was rubbish."
Mm-hmm. And then everybody loses. Yeah. Everybody's lost out.
What's the point?
I think also as well, just something I want to add about what we're speaking about there is that can feel overwhelming sometimes about that. I need to get the right food, hydration, but I've also got a newborn baby and I'm trying to run a business. So what I would say as well is, please, like, whenever you're listening to conversations like this and advice like this, it doesn't mean you have to do it all immediately. Like, do you know what I mean?
Baby
Take
steps.
one or two things. If your sleep's been crap, maybe just focus on that for the next couple of weeks only. Or maybe you've just not been getting fresh air or exercise. Maybe just do that. You know, the thing to remember is this: focus on progress, not perfection. None of us are perfect. None of us ever will be. You don't need to get everything right all the time, but just think, what's the next step that's going to get me one step closer to feeling better and moving forward?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, like, I think time is always a huge factor in whatever anybody's doing. Sometimes they don't think they've got enough time, but I say when I'm building my own business, I think we spoke about this off air as well, that as long as I'm doing one thing a day that moves my business forward,
great.
If that's all I can manage in that day, maybe other days I can do more.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I'm happy.
Well, this is it. And let's talk about the subject of consistency, because we hear all the time it bounded about consistency is key. And I agree, of course it is. If you want any substantial win, result, whatever, there has to be a level of consistency. But here's how consistency looks like when I coach it. For me, I talk about non-negotiables. So have something consistently you can do every day for your business. And it might be something so underwhelming, easy. It might be one post on social media.
Yeah.
And it might take you 4 minutes. Like, can you do that every day? Yeah. Like, even on your shittest, hardest day, 4 minutes of creating, putting a picture and what caption you can do. So I always say to everybody, whether it be health goals with your physique, your fitness, whether it be business goals, financial goals, have daily non-negotiables, something that is so easy to do and so simple, and make that a commitment. Then what I say is this: on the days where you feel superhuman, and we all have them, where everything's flowing, you feel amazing, and you feel like you can do everything. But then what happens often is we can only go so long doing that. We then have a slump, and this is where people go wrong with consistency. Then when they don't feel motivated after being on a big high,
stop.
They're then like, I've lost it now. I've lost momentum. And my advice is this: just do the non-negotiables. And one of the reasons for that is what the studies show is often with procrastination and not doing stuff, it's not the doing it that's the issue, it's just getting started.
Yeah.
And if we can have something nice and simple to just do something, we might actually do a bit more. And also we might not, and that's fine too. At least you've done the non-negotiable. And then I add to that as well, I say also give yourself another little thing in the back of your mind which you don't want to rely on all the time and do all the time, but every now and then you might not do your non-negotiables. You might be just like, I'm just in my emotions, they've taken over today, fuck it all. That's okay too. But I would always say, give yourself absolute maximum a deal that you won't go longer than 48 hours. Give yourselves every now and then 2 days to fuck it all off if you need to. Because if you do that over a year, over 10 years, you're going to be consistent as hell. What most people do is they go all in, super hard, balls to the wall, burn out, and then have 6 months off.
Yeah.
So 48 hours in comparison to that, you're going to be really consistent.
It's a lot easier to keep momentum, even if it's the gradual momentum.
Tiny bits, yeah.
Rather than fully stopping and then trying to get momentum back. Because
100%, agreed.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
As soon as you get out of the routine of something, look, we're all guilty of it. Like, maybe we forget to post one day and then the next day it's like, oh, I didn't post yesterday. It can go another day and then another day and then another day. And then you need to snap out of it and go, right, back to it then.
But I also talk about seasons. So know what season you're in right now. And how you find that out is by going, what's the biggest thing that I want to change in my life? And if it's your weight, if it's your relationship status, or the current relationship you're in is in a bad place, if it's your finances, or if it's your business, you then go, right, this is my season for this area. So make your main priority that. Put 80% of your focus on that. Have your non-negotiables about that. Because the other mistake people make is they try and have non-negotiables all year round, every day, for their health, for their relationship, for their finances, for their business. And you're setting yourself up to fail. So I think another bit of advice to give people is do things in seasons. Don't try and smash everything
Don't
all
take
at
too
the
much
same
on.
time. Don't take too much on.
Yeah.
Yes, try and be consistent. Always, I would say, make health up there. It should always be a priority, really, your health. But don't try and be superhuman for everything. And communication is key. You know, if you're going to be working a bit more, if you're going to be in, like, this is my season for business growth, and you're not going to be with your partner as much, your children as much, whatever, as long as they understand that and they know the vision, they know the reason why, they know there's a time frame on this, we're not going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Yeah, exactly. So I think then life coaching then. So what is your life coaching? How have you structured that? How do you help people? What can people get from you?
For me, there's two key ways really that I work with people now. One is my Success School membership, which is the kind of, it's just, I love it. We've got such an amazing community of people there now. There's nearly 100 people in there.
Incredible.
And they're all, what I love is they're all different people that have different goals, but the one thing they've got in common is they're good bloody human beings, just working on being the best they can be. And that in itself is so infectious and such a great thing to be around. And in that you have, you know, we have a WhatsApp group, we do Zoom calls every week, we have guest speakers that come on Zoom, we do live events now, and that's just 19 quid a month after you've had a 2-week free trial. So that's just like a really easy way to
free, see what you think.
I won't even say it's dipping your toe, it's giving you everything you need, just apart from that one-to-one support really. And the reason I've done that is I noticed that there was this whole thing of high ticket coaching, and you know, if you want to be successful you need to invest high and pay me $5,000 and all this. And then I was seeing that actually, because I paid a lot of that, I've paid a lot of money over the last few years, myself in courses and coaches and so on, and I found that actually what I was getting was all pretty universal shit a lot of the time. There was no secret codes. I just was, you know, 50 grand down now. And actually I could have probably got that for a fraction of the price. So that's what Success School is for me. It's giving people access without them having to pay that premium. But again, you know, when you're working with someone one-to-one, that is going to be more bespoke, personalised support and plan and advice and so on. So people can book 4-week coaching packages with me, or they can just do a one-off clarity session, 60 or 90 minutes. That's how I work. And what I would say about coaching in general is, I've been reflecting on this recently because I've been coaching for a few years now. I've worked with coaches, I'm friends with coaches. And I kind of think when you're looking to pick a coach, there's 3 stages to 3 levels to coaching. And I think level 1 coaches, these are the ones that it's like Groundhog Day. They get up every morning at 5 a.m. They go to the gym for 2 hours. They do the journaling, gratitude. They shout at you on social media.
Yeah, I see those.
And then they just do back-to-back Zooms all day coaching, and it's rinse and repeat. That's what they do 7 days a week. Now, that's great for a bit of initial motivation and inspiration. There's a bit of a time and a place for that. And I say that as someone who was that coach for 2 years. I did that years ago when I first started. I'm not saying there isn't some value in that, but I don't believe it's sustainable. And I don't believe... Here's the thing, right? If you've got a life coach that doesn't look like they've got a life, there's a problem. If you've got a life coach that every day at 5 a.m. is in the gym shouting at everybody and then on Zoom all day, 7 days a week, is that a life you want to live? Like we were just talking about pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, where's the pleasure? It's all go, 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 go. If you've got a business coach that's only business is coaching, how can they teach you business? They haven't got a business.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're the level 1 coaches for me. Level 2 is what I would say that I'm at. And this is like where you yourself as a coach have maybe got a bit more flexibility in your life, more variety. You've got more free time, more fun. You don't have to work all the time. There's, you know, you've more choice over your life. And they're the coaches that I believe are giving the better, more advanced advice to people that are going to be more about fulfillment and happiness, not just about Rolex watches and Lamborghinis. I think level 1 coaches generally, it's more about the fake success.
The materialistic.
Yeah, the materialistic stuff. I would say I'm more in that level 2 where I've been through that stage and I've seen the pros and the cons and I've developed. And so for me, you know, if you want to actually have success for the rest of your life, and by success, we're talking about happiness, health, fulfillment, good relationships, confidence, self-esteem, and as a byproduct, maybe you'll do pretty well financially as well. That's what I'm helping people do. I think the level 3 coaches, by the way, these are like the investorpreneurs. These are the people that never want to work, don't have to work, a day in the life if they don't want to. They do it because they're passionate, because they choose to. These are the people that have invested in loads of businesses, got millions of pounds, and usually...
Now pick and choose. Philanthropy.
Well, that's what, but usually... they will qualify you as a client. You don't choose them because they will work with who they want to work with. Usually they're going to be super expensive. There's only going to be a small percent of people that can work with them. I think when you're choosing a mentor, my advice, if you're looking at life and business coaching, you want to be looking at what I'm calling that level 2 coach. If you look at their life and it's not a life you aspire to have, if they're just all day, every day, hustle, why would you want to be trained by them? You know, when you look at my stuff and what I show, there's a lot of variety in my life. You'll see me on telly one day, you'll see me podcasting another, you'll see me touring with my band, you'll see me in a nightclub having fun. You'll also still see me in the gym, working hard, coaching people. And when I'm doing my coaching days, I'm going in and I am working with you and I'm giving you everything I've got. So it's, you know, but I've got the flexibility, the variety. And I think the great thing about me as a coach, not to blow my own trumpet, but let's blow it anyway. The great thing about me is I actually don't need to coach.
Yeah.
I'm financially doing fine. I'm happy with my life. I don't need to coach. And I think a lot of the level 1 coaches, their only income comes from coaching. Therefore, they can be a bit pushy.
Yeah, which I think is just wrong. You shouldn't, your only income, if you're a business coach or whatever it is, it shouldn't only come
from coaching.
Because then you're not really doing what you're teaching people.
There's going to be on some level, exactly. There's some things inauthentic on some levels, and potentially going to be keeping clients on for longer than you should because you're like, oh, that's a big part of my income I'm going to lose. That's where there's red flags, I would say. For me, genuinely, I coach because I bloody love it. Like my Success School community, the people in there, I love it. I love it. And that's why I'm still doing it. I don't need to do it.
So if somebody wants to start your coaching, how can they get in touch? How can they get involved?
Drop me a message. Come over to my social media, Instagram, Matt Hall Official, which is really embarrassing. I did it when I was like 19 or whatever, when Instagram first started, because I'm the official me. Yeah, Matt Hall Official. Just drop me a DM on there. There's other ways, but just do that.
Mentor.me is one of the other ways as well.
Shit, yeah. Should we do a retake?
Of course. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic having you here.
Thank you. And good luck with everything. I'm loving the podcast.